Hi, welcome to virtual orientation for the 20th anniversary SG293RK Springdale by Keystone. We're going to start the orientation on the outside of the trailer, and we're going to begin at the front. The first thing that we're going to come to is your front storage compartment on the driver's side or door side. It's a pass-through compartment, and there's a few things I'll show you on the other side when we get there. Immediately below this compartment, I will point out the stabilization jack. There are 4 of them, and they're located on the 4 corners of the trailer. They're to be used to stabilize, never used to level. You should have your RV mostly level before you engage the jacks, and then you only snug them up just tight to the ground or any blocking that you might be using. I would suggest having some blocking on hand, as if you are camping somewhere where the ground isn't even, you might not be able to extend the jacks far enough to make contact with the ground. Continue to work your way along the front, and we'll make note of the battery storage area, and directly in front of that we'll take a look at your propane system. This particular unit has 2 20-pound bottles connected via a crossover regulator. What this crossover regulator will do is, at the moment, the handle is pointing this direction, which means it will draw from this tank first. When this tank drops below a predetermined amount of pressure, it will automatically cross over and draw from this side, regardless of where this handle is pointing. What that means is, those cold nights, if you're running your furnace and you run out of propane, you don't have to get out and manually switch your bottles over. Also, in front of your propane storage is your electric tongue jack. The electric tongue jack has a loading light, useful for nighttime hitch-ups, and electric up and down functioning of the tongue. On the top, you'll notice there is this port that is to be used with the manual crank for the tongue jack. That manual crank can be found in the front storage compartment, and it's on the off-door side. As we come around the side here and drop down, we will notice our breakaway switch. This breakaway switch is connected to the tow vehicle via this loop end here, and the other end is connected to a pin. Right here is the housing. So if that is connected via the tow vehicle via this loop, and then the pin is connected on the other side to the housing of the breakaway switch, in the event that the tow vehicle is separated from the RV, it will pull the pin, engaging the trailer brakes. Also, it's worth noting that if at any time you find the trailer brakes are engaged, specifically after you've just hooked up, I suggest coming out and making sure that the pin is fully seated, as I have seen it before where the pin is partially pulled free of the housing and the trailer brakes get engaged. Let's continue our way along the outside of the RV. We'll come to the off-door side of your pass-through storage compartment. In here we will find the conversion block from your supplied 50 amp power cord to 30 amp. And inside the unit we have a conversion block that converts the 30 amp to a 15 amp plug-in. What this will allow you to do is draw power and connect to power at pretty much any campground or at your home. Most of us don't have a 50 or 30 amp plug on the outside of our home, so the conversion block can be handy for powering some items in your trailer while it's parked in your driveway. Also in here, if I can move this out of the way a bit, we have the manual crank for your stabilization jacks, and hiding underneath here we also have the manual crank for your electric tongue jack. So if you're ever without power, you're still able to raise your tongue up and down. Directly beside the off-door front storage compartment access, we have your freshwater connection and your city water connection. The freshwater connection is what you'll use to fill your freshwater tank. The freshwater tank is used if you're camping without a water supply, So if you're not camping at a campground, maybe you have a camp and you don't have a water line or anything like that. But you can also use it if you have a campground you'll be camping at that doesn't have potable water. So you could possibly fill your freshwater tank ahead of time so you have a supply of potable or drinkable water. It is, however, recommended that you only use potable water for your freshwater tank. However, I know sometimes your campgrounds don't always offer it. And right next to that, we have your city water connection. This is where you connect the garden hose from your either home or campground that you're staying at, and it will provide you with pressurized water to the water system of the RV that you can then use just like you'd use the water at home. As we make our way along, we'll notice outside shower, as well as a connection point for your black tank flush. It works same as the city water connection. You connect it to a water supply via garden hose, just screws in here, and you can help clean out the black tank. If we drop down, we'll notice the output for your black and gray water tanks, as well as valve handle for your black and gray tanks as well. Make our way along the slide here, and we will come to your secondary gray water tank with a secondary output as well. Right above that, we have the main input for your cable or satellite for the RV. This is where you connect your satellite or cable from the trailer park. This here is the back of your refrigerator. This venting is needed to ensure the proper operation of your refrigerator. If not properly vented, it will not function up to its specifications. So please keep this free of all obstructions while you're using your fridge. Directly below that, we have your 50 amp power supply. This is what you would use to connect yourself to your 50 amp campground power. As I showed you previously, the power cable to connect to the campground power supply is in the front storage compartment, along with the conversion block for your 50 to 30 amp power, and your conversion block from 30 amp to 50 amp is in the RV. Also on the back, we have the outside access to your hot water tank. You see here, there's three pretty important aspects to the outside of this hot water tank. We have your pressure relief valve, our second important part, which is your drain plug. So if you're ever doing anything that requires you to remove the drain plug from this hot water tank, especially if it's pressurized, you will want to open this pressure relief valve to relieve any pressure beforehand. If you don't, as soon as you get this on that last piece of thread, it's going to just shoot out at you. And then the last thing I want to show in here is the resets for the hot water heater. So if you find you've tried to light it and it's still not lighting, I'd come out here, press the reset, just make sure that it is functioning properly. As we make our way to where we started almost, you'll notice we have an output for your cable or satellite TV underneath your awning, as well as a mounting bracket and a 120 volt GFCI plug. Also under the awning we have 1 and 2 speakers. These speakers can be used via the stereo inside the RV. Now before we move on, I want to make a bit of a special note about the exhaust for your furnace. It is outside under your awning, and I'm sure all of us realize it'll be hot. However, because it is under the awning and it's more likely to be contacted by someone, just be aware that it does actually get pretty hot. So you want to make sure you're not leaning against it or touching it while your furnace is operating. All right, let's step inside and take a look at what we can find. So the first thing, we come through the door and we'll see the fire extinguisher for the unit. This fire extinguisher is an important part of your safety equipment and is located in a great spot, easily accessible to the outside if you're cooking, but also easily accessible inside if you happen to be cooking in here and you have an emergency. So if we turn to the right from the door here, we'll notice what looks like a pretty important part of the RV. We have switching for your slide to extend and retract, as well as an extension and retraction of your awning via this switch here. We also have some lights connected. You see the main lights or entry light of the RV is connected to the switch here. We have your slide accent light as well as the light for your awning. Also up here we have switching for your water heater on gas, electric, and your water pump. And lastly, we have your indication panel for your battery levels, your freshwater, black, and gray water tanks. Let's go to our right here and we'll take a look at your thermostat. We have an off, heat, cool, or fan functions. And on this side we have controls for your fan to either run it on high or low auto or high or low fan. Just always on fan. And in the center we have the dial to select the temperature. If we look directly below that, you will see your carbon monoxide propane detector. This carbon monoxide propane detector is equipped with a button on the front that I just pressed. One loud beep and you'll notice that the light turned back to a solid green. That would indicate that this is functioning properly. I would also like you to be aware that certain things can set this off that are not carbon monoxide or propane. One of the most common ones that will set this off is painting. So if you're doing any painting, be aware that will alter the functionality of this device. Step into your bathroom here. Have a nice spacious bathroom, nice corner shower, and most importantly in here we have the GFCI plug for the RV. Normally if you're connected to your 120 volt power supply or AC power supply, you will notice a green light on this GFCI plug if it's functioning properly. If it is not functioning properly, the light will disappear. At the moment it's not on simply because I am not plugged into AC power supply. However, if you're having an issue with any of your receptacles, especially ones around water, the counter plugs in the kitchen or your GFCI plugs outside, they're most likely connected to the load side of this plug, so if this is tripped, they will not be functioning either. So the first place I'd come is here, press the top button which is your reset, and then you should have functionality of all your receptacles connected to the load side of this GFCI plug. Step into the bedroom here. We will notice that we have a mounting position marked on the wall. That just is letting you know that there is more back here to back the mounting bracket if you decide to install one. And we also have the output and 120 volt power for your TV as well. Just take a moment to talk about your emergency exit. There's a black tab here. Push that down while pressing the red handle up, over and out. Bring it perpendicular to the wall of the RV or the window itself, and then simply push it all the way out. Once the window is all the way out, you can pull this red tab here, removing the screen, and you are able then to escape to safety. This bed also has underbed storage and a neat little access point to your front storage compartment. Let's go back into the main area of the trailer and we'll take a look at what else we have to talk about. So as we step into the main living area here, we'll talk about your air conditioning specifically. You'll notice that on either end of this air conditioner we have some baffles. These baffles, when closed, such as that, will force the majority of your cool air through these ports located throughout the RV. However, if you open these, it will allow the majority of your cool air to fall right here. So depending on what your needs are, you have a little bit of flexibility. So we look here, you'll find the location that you would mount or position your TV or main TV for the RV. You'll find the connectivity to your stereo, as well as your output for cable or satellite. And you will notice that there is a signal booster for your antenna. Now that signal booster, while it does help your antenna, it does not help your satellite or cable signal. So if you're trying to hook up the cable or satellite and you're not getting the signal you think you should be getting, try pressing this button and reconnecting or reconfiguring your channel setup and see if your signal improves. Over here, we'll take a second to talk about your stereo. The stereo has an auxiliary port, as well as Bluetooth connectivity, USB charging capabilities, and DVDs. It also has two zones. Zone 1 is inside the RV, and Zone 2 are the speakers that I mentioned earlier that are outside underneath your awning. Next, we will come to your refrigerator. It has an on-off button. Currently this is off. And it also has the ability to run on gas or electricity. The electricity function is obtained via the auto setting. In auto mode, your refrigerator will connect to electricity always if it is available. If not available, it will automatically then switch over to your propane. If you press this button here, you can force it to go to propane only. If you see that this light is lit, that would indicate there's a problem with your gas. The most common problem is either the valves have not been opened on the propane system out front, or it's something that you just had done and the pressure has not built up enough in the lines to light the appliance. In either case, I would turn the fridge off here, take a minute, go outside, check the bottles, make sure they're open, then come back in and attempt to light it again. Now if we drop down just below your refrigerator, we'll see the load center or power center for the RV. And this is where you will find the breakers like you'd see in your house, and they operate pretty much the same way. And your fuses, much like you'd see in your vehicle. Also note that if a fuse is burnt out, or if you pull one of them out, there will be a little red light that lights up beside the fuse. So if you're having any power issues whatsoever, and you open this up and you see that there's a red light on beside one of the fuses, that would indicate that that fuse needs to be replaced. I think I'll just slide on over to this little panel access here. This is underneath your oven and range combo. There's two red Robertson screws that I removed previously, granting you access to the back inside portion of your hot water tank. And we would like to talk about your two valves here. There's one here and the same type of valve here. Currently they're both pointing in towards your hot water tank. That means this unit is ready to use and water will flow in and out of the tank. However, if you're going to winterize, you would turn this valve handle so it's in line here with this, and it will actually loop and avoid the hot water tank. Now you have to do that with both the upper and lower valves, and then you would bypass your hot water tank. Why would we do that? Well, in the wintertime when you're winterizing your RV, there is absolutely no need to fill your hot water tank full of antifreeze, as it has a drain plug, so you can drain all water out of it. I believe I showed you that earlier. We'll look up slightly here at your stove and your range top, and we'll show you how to light these. First things first, however, you'll notice that there is a glass cooktop. Please don't ever try to light your burners with this glass down. Always fold it back like this so that these are all fully exposed. Lighting your burners with the glass down will most likely lead to that glass breaking. So now that the glass is up, we can go ahead and light our stove or our burners. So you turn it to the light position such as that, turn the handle, and we have flame. You do the same thing for all burners. And lastly, we have your oven portion. Always make sure you open the door to the oven first before attempting to light. Press and hold the knob in for the oven temp selection while you turn the sparker knob. It does take a few turns to get it to light, so don't be discouraged if it doesn't light right away, especially if it is the initial light. Once you've set up the RV and it's the first time lighting, it will take a little bit to build up the pressure in order to light the oven. So before we pack up camp and drive away, we always want to make sure that you close this again. That way you minimize the chance that this gets broken in transit. Before we finish up, I want to make sure I talk a little bit about your smoke detector. I did mention your carbon monoxide and propane detector. Well, it's important that we test both systems or make sure both of these systems are working properly. So the general rule of thumb is to change the batteries in your smoke detector every 6 months or on daylight savings time. Just makes it easier to remember. Last thing that we didn't really touch on or talk about is your water pump. The water pump is located in the front storage compartment on the off-door side. There are a few Red Robertson screws that you take out and you can remove a box that is built around it. You would do that to winterize the RV if you chose to do that yourself. That sums up our virtual orientation of this 20th anniversary Springdale by Keystone. I hope you found our orientation useful and informative. If there was something that was important to you that I missed, please don't hesitate to call in and we will do our best to help you out any way we can. Thank you very much.